Is the minutes of our previous meeting from 7/20 of 2020, copies of which are in the packets. Any revisions or corrections needed to the minutes? If not, a motion to approve would be appropriate. Motion by Herbst, is there a second? Second by Peckham. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. The minutes are then approved. Item number 2 is to consider approval or denial of various license applications. You have a packet of them in front of you. There were no denials recommended for tonight. We did have a couple of events seeking event permits. One is a Iron Bowl bike race. You see that one is in there as well. And then we've got a monster truck event that wants to take place at Marathon Park at the end of the month. That one is expected to draw 3,000 to 4,000 people. And so, looks like that one also will serve alcohol. I was hoping that we would be able to have some dialogue back and forth with the organizer. Is the organizer on WebEx?
No.
He did say, I did email with him, and they wanted to serve beer, and I explained to him that they could not, as a business, do that. So he was looking into getting like the Optimists or something, but as of yet, nothing has been applied for.
And therein was my concern with the application, because the application has a lot of lines filled out that say, will be taken care of, with no details. It's also expected to draw a large crowd, and I wanted to talk with them about their distancing plan, as far as how they're going to seat and separate all these people, and we need to know what they're going to do to keep them, within the confines of the grandstand, and are they going to wristband the folks? And we have no answers to that. So I guess I have difficulty approving an event permit with no answers from him.
Right, I forwarded him your email with those very questions, and that's why I saw this morning an email from him saying that he was going to call in, because I don't remember what state he's from, but I don't know, maybe he was having difficulty calling in. I sent him the link to the agenda so he could see where the number and that was.
All right. If it pleases the committee, we could accept or deny as recommended, and pull that one out of the batch and handle it at the end of the meeting. That would give him some more time to call in if he's going to call in with the answers, because I think we need to know more than we had on his application. And by the end of the meeting, if he doesn't call in, then we're going to have to make a decision. But since we're so early in the meeting, 3 minutes in, if we want to allow him some time.
I think that would be an excellent way to handle it.
Okay. Then given that, I would accept a motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff, with the exception of the monster truck event.
I would make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Peckham. Is there a second? Second by Wadinsky. Go ahead, Mary.
Just wanted to, a last-minute application came in from Pine Ridge Mobile. They have a Class A beer license, and they're adding liquor, so it'll be a full Class A license. But that came in after your list went out.
So that one would be included in the
It will
approval
be
batch?
included because they want to get started as soon as they can, but they're already a licensed establishment for many years. They're just adding a combination license.
Okay, and retail only, so.
What's the address on that one? Where are they?
That is 1205 Merrill Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions or comments? If not, seeing none, then members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries then. Item number 3 is to consider request for waiver of Chapter 3.06.010, payment of taxes, claims, forfeitures, judgments prior to issuance of a license or permit. The petitioner is Frances Howe, and she's asking us to issue her a cab driver license in lieu of a large water bill. Is Frances with us today? Frances Howe?
I talked to her this morning. She was going to try to be here, so.
Okay. We have some correspondence from her in the packets, but without an ability to talk with her about how long it might take to satisfy this debt, it's difficult to make a decision.
That was
Yeah.
going to be my question, is whether there was some sort of payment plan proposed.
Yes, she said she did set up a payment plan with water.
So she has arranged for that already?
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds like the absence of the cab income is what's stopping the payments. So what are your thoughts, committee? Do you want to issue a waiver and give the license so she can get that taken care of? Tara, come on up and
I wonder if we can wait and see if she comes in. I know she's filed a claim against the city with respect to the vehicle accident she was in.
Okay,
And I saw her letter, and I also spoke with Ann a little bit, and it would be good to hear, I'm not sure how this all resulted in her not being able to drive her taxi cab or losing her taxi cab license. I mean, I'm just a little confused.
Well,
by
we have
that.
an ordinance that says that we cannot issue any license if somebody owes something
No, I
to the
know,
city, so.
But, I mean, how long has it been since she hasn't been driving a cab?
Yeah, that I don't know.
accident wasn't a significant accident, and I think
She
been
just
a year and a
didn't,
half.
she didn't renew?
she
when
was
it's
only
time.
off of work from her doctor for 4 or 5 days. So it would be nice to hear from her as to how this all,
sure.
has she not been driving a cab ever since the accident? That would be kind of unusual.
Okay.
So,
So what we could do is we could hold action on item 3. If she comes in before the end of the meeting, we can take item 3. If not, we could hold item 3 off to next month. If she doesn't appear next month, then we'd have to make a decision if you guys are okay with that.
I
Sometimes,
just have a comment.
go ahead, Dawn.
I guess I don't understand how she could have accumulated such a high bill. Obviously, this accident happened in January of last year. Which I have. And she already at that point, as of May 29, had a previous balance of 569.41. She certainly did not accumulate that. It's impossible, I think, to accumulate that in that length of time, and then to add another 569.41 to it.
Right.
It's like, I don't
We're
understand that.
not clear on how many bills that represents, but it's a
Right.
sizable obligation.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if you guys are okay with, let's hold action on item number 3. And if she doesn't show up, we could always defer it to next month. And if she doesn't appear next month, we'll make a definitive choice. Is that good with the committee? Okay. Item number 4 is to consider an amendment to the Dining on the Streets special event application to include amplified music outside Malarkey's on Thursdays. And I don't know if you've seen or not, but Dining in the Street has been so wildly popular downtown this summer, since we approved it, that the downtown merchants would love to have it also on Thursday and bring in musicians on Thursday. They have them on the corner outside Malarkey's and allow them to play. But we'd need to amend the permit to allow the Thursday event to take place. We have Tyler with us from Malarkey's, if you guys have questions for him, and Blake's here from Main Street as well. Does anyone have questions for either one of them? It looks like the event operates similar in scope, other than they're not sitting in the street on Thursday, because the street isn't closed, but
That's what I was going to ask. Is this the exact same thing, or are we going to close the street?
it looks like they're using the sidewalk cafe permits on the sidewalk, right? Is that, Tyler's nodding?
Okay, and then it's all the entire group again, or just some, the entire group? Okay.
Yep. And so they sit him on the corner in front of Malarkey's, and then he's close enough that you can hear him all the way from Washington to Scott, kind of. So everyone sitting on those sidewalks can still hear the show. At least they've done one last Thursday, and it seemed like it was pretty popular. Come on up, Tyler, if you want to.
I'm wondering if the application is from Malarkey's or if it's from the River District and the location of the music is just by Malarkey's.
Right, so do I need to wear this to talk into a microphone? Oh, okay,
No.
cool. I don't want to like yell at you.
You're pretty
through it.
far away, so
I
we're
feel- I
pretty
feel
safe.
I feel safe right now. So basically, the 6 businesses open downtown all have sidewalk cafe seating anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And we've noticed that if we put something on outside, that it helps draw more people to the area. This kind of helps Brad out too. He had a gig, a reoccurring gig up in Minocqua. That restaurant has closed for a while. So, and I talked personally with the owner or manager at all 6 restaurants within earshot, and they are all co-sponsors. Like, they're all actively sharing this. Maybe that's your guy.
Maybe that's our call-in.
I have another question, a quick. I don't know if you want to take this first, if you get a
Sure.
chance.
Let's just get them answered so that
Mess
it
up
quits
the
ringing.
monster trucks, you know.
City of Wausau, this is Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie is Shirley. Or Shirley?
How'd she get through all the way
Is
here?
this Danae?
Yeah, this is Danae.
No, we're in the middle of the meeting. I haven't seen anybody come.
Okay. Trying to crack this code
be okay for Tuesday.
Yeah, I have a ticket going. And we will, get one out there first thing up.
Thank you.
Which branch is this? That these monsters are at?
It's in council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. So that'll eventually solve our WebEx issue, just not today. Okay, so go ahead with your questions.
Oh, so my question is, well, I guess I need a permit if I wanted to do this on, say, a Friday or a Sunday as well?
I think if it's outdoor in the public right away, yes, because he's setting up on the sidewalk.
Correct. I mean,
Yep.
I've had a couple jazz shows on like a Sunday afternoon. I didn't even know I was in violation of anything. But could I fill something out, like, and kind of get that going before next month when there's another meeting like this? Mm-hmm.
For an outdoor, for a different variety of,
Right. I mean, essentially, what we've noticed is if we put something out near the 400 block, it increases all the traffic for every business downtown. Obviously, if there's a permitted event nearby, we would just, pull the plug on it, and that'd be my bad for not knowing. But in the meantime, I'm just curious if like an acoustic guitar player that's helping draw foot traffic to the area where people can sit in the 400 block and listen is really an issue. I mean, as long as there's not noise complaints and it's done by, 9:30 at night or whatever.
Right.
I honestly didn't even realize you needed special permit. I mean, there's a few other things like this going on already. I don't want to
Right.
point any fingers,
Well,
but I'm
and-
curious how I get to do it too.
there's a fine line between amplified music performance and busking, which we allow anyway.
Right,
You know,
these are amplified
Right, right.
performances.
And that's, if we amend this permit, we add Wednesday and Thursday under the same permit. I don't know if we have enough leeway within that permit to, allow for, pop-up type events that say on a given Saturday or Sunday or whatever. It's all the same participants and all the same restaurants. So, what do you guys think on, rather than making them keep coming back? 'Cause this whole thing's only going to work till Halloween anyway. Would you want
If
to?
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you want to approve them for Wednesday, Thursday, and then pop-ups as needed? I mean, if they're all in the same area.
I would just as soon, instead of having them wait or us having a special meeting, I think it's kind of a controlling thing. So I just would like it all okayed now.
Yeah, honestly, if there's like a complaint or a conflict, we'd be the first one to back up from
For
it. I
sure.
mean, we're just literally trying to help add to the foot traffic for all the restaurants downtown.
Well, and it has seemed like it's really helping to sustain the restaurants too down there, so.
It is. We did one on a Friday night, and almost everyone's numbers were doubled on a Friday,
Wow.
just from having a guy with a guitar standing out on the corner. I mean, well, I understand why we need licensing. I guess I'm not here to rock the boat. I just want to make sure I'm not like in violation of anything.
Right. Well, I think if we amend that permit to include Wednesday, Thursday, and, pop-up
things,
events of a
yeah.
similar nature as necessary.
Right.
That way if you have one on a Saturday or Sunday, I mean, it's probably not every week, but if you have one, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Right, and we've got the Parks Department sent to Blake the schedule, and then he forwarded it to me. There's only one other event downtown
Yeah,
this
there's not
entire
much.
time. Yeah, so it's not like conflict's a problem.
Right.
It just so happened it was a police event on a Wednesday or Thursday during the first one we did, and I called the organizer, and I think we worked it out just fine. It wasn't really an issue. So.
Okay, perfect.
Should be through October?
Right, October 31st was the sunset on the original one.
Till the snow
So this would
flies.
just amend that to allow for additional
If
dates.
she made a
Actually-
motion, I'll second it.
Right, so we have a motion from McElhaney, second by Peckham.
Lisa?
Yes?
Actually, the special event application originally was to end at the end of August for dining on the streets, but we amended it to the end of
September,
September
yeah.
for
Okay.
dining on the streets. The October thing you're thinking about is for the premise or the sidewalk cafe.
Oh, that's for the outdoor alcohol.
But the dining on the streets event has been extended to the end of September.
Through
know-
September.
Here's
Yes.
another thought then, I guess, because the dining on the streets is as popular, the outdoor alcohol was to facilitate dining in the street. So is there interest in having dining on the street through the month of October, assuming the weather doesn't turn? I mean, while we're amending things, do we want to also amend the sunset date?
I would.
Because everything else is going till Halloween, including all the outdoor,
Lisa, on the liquor thing, on the.
no, the event, the dining in the street event. The outdoor alcohol is already done. But if they wanted to have 4 more in October, we'd have to make them come back again. And if the weather's decent, why would we not just do that right now? Okay. Would you want to include that in your motion, Becky, that we would extend the sunset also to 10/31?
Yes, I'll make that motion, that we're extending the dining until October 31st, and that includes the pop-ups on
Right.
Saturday and Sunday.
Okay?
And
Is
I
that
would
good with
agree
you,
to the
Pat?
change, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second then. Additional questions or discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries.
Thank you.
You're all good. Thanks for coming in, guys. Okay, that brings us to item number 5 is a request for a permanent amendment of premise for an outdoor beer garden at the Glass Hat at 1203 North 3rd Street. The petitioner on that one is Gisela Marks, the owner. And you'll recall last month, she was here, and we had some questions about zoning, and we wanted to get some comment from Bill Hebert. So in between meetings, Tara talked with Bill Hebert, and from a zoning standpoint, she's good to have the outdoor area. So there's not an issue with the way that's set up, and he did email us this morning and let us know that he wasn't going to be available tonight, but the only thing they would need to get from the staff is a permit for fencing and retaining walls, but inspections handles that stuff all the time anyway. So if you guys are good with an outdoor area, contained, you could approve it based on the diagrams that she's submitted. It would be on the north side of her building. Does anyone have questions on the presentation that she made last month or any? Okay, is there a motion to approve the outdoor area for her? Motion by Herbst, is there a second? Second by Wadinsky. Additional comment or questions? Seeing none? Oh, come right up. Welcome.
We've since come, I talked to Bill this afternoon, and I talked to Alan from engineering last week. Tried to get a hold of Rick. I've talked to every department possible. We may have a drainage issue from the alley,
Okay,
but I spoke to Bill, and I said regardless of whether we end up doing a deck or we do the asphalt, if it mattered to him, and he said no, as long as there was 3 feet from the sidewalk.
sure. And
So-
they'll guide you with the permits and all that for
Right,
the fence
right,
and
I just-
whatnot,
I
so.
just wanted to make sure that you understood that it may not just be, we may have to just build a deck and let the water
Sure.
do its thing.
I think whether it's asphalt or raised
Okay.
platform really doesn't matter as long as there's adequate entry and egress and stuff for people to get in and out safely.
Right.
And you'll work with the departments and
Oh,
the
yeah.
inspectors on all that anyway?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the floor then to approve the outdoor area. Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thanks for coming in twice. Discussion. Item number 6 is discussion and possible action on amending the City of Wausau events policy and procedures to permit limited use of certain unimproved city-owned real property. And so you can see from the work that Tara has done in your packets, there's a request that's come in from the Bridge Clinic to allow a short-term event called Yoga in the Garden. But it's on a parcel of land that the city owns, and we didn't have any provisions before for that to outline event-type use on city-owned parcels that, currently we're not using, but we still own them. And so the changes that Tara's incorporated into the ordinance that you see in your packet would allow that type of use on what is essentially vacant land that we happen to own. And she's got kind of a list of criteria there for limiting the event to, 2 days or less and a number of considerations. Do you have anything that you want to add, Tara, to walk us through the process here?
Well, the only thing I really wanted to say is all these requirements, like the factual things, how many days and how many hours, I just made up because there's really no one to guide me on this, as a business matter, what people would prefer. So if there's anything in this that you would like to see different, there's no legal reason why I picked 2 days. There's no legal reason why I picked 5 recurring events. It was just some numbers I put in there, kind of sort of based off what Bridge Clinic had asked for and maybe some things I had seen in other communities. So similarly with the alcohol, no alcohol concessions. I just threw that in there. So please feel free to, choose or amend any of these business terms that you think
Sure.
are
I
appropriate?
feel like, at least having considered events for a long time, I feel like if it's an event of a longer duration or one that wants to have alcohol, we'd have bigger considerations than just the fact that they're on a parcel of vacant land that the city owns. And we would want a more in-depth application from them than just this little land use permit. I mean, we would want an event application, basically, where we could ask them some really detailed questions about how they handle the alcohol and who picks up the garbage and all that stuff. So,
Well, the vision would be that I would just add them to the Class 3 event. They could
Yes.
fill that same
right.
application out.
Sure, but there'd be a little higher level of consideration besides just these few little things that we have, like for the yoga type event. You know, the Class 3 looks at a little bit more, as far as, well, all
Well,
of
they
our
fill
events.
out the same application.
Right, it's just attendance is the only determining factor, right? Estimated attendance. So the larger the event, the more consideration they get as far as whether
Well-
they're staff approved or whether they end up here.
See, and that's the thing, the parcel that Bridge Clinic wants to use is small. It's a small residential lot across the street from the one garden they have on Jefferson. So, yeah, that's why I thought, well, restricting at least to numbers of days or recurring events, no more than 4 hours, it kind of puts a limit of its own on the type of event that would go on there. Well, staff is going to sit down and talk, starting tomorrow, a little more in depth about what we would do for longer-term uses. For example, the Bridge community has, sponsors that community garden over by Trolley Flats. That has a lease, but in discussing all these things, we don't really have a policy about who can use and who can't use and how will we approve that. So we're going to start working on a longer-term policy and identify what properties are even open for this. That
Sure.
might be another thing in putting that list together, that even for these smaller events, more limited events, we say, well, not this property, only these couple of properties. So that's another way to moderate that.
Sure. Well, and this type of stuff seems to lend itself more to a pop-up type vibe where they have just a day or two here and there. And, on a parcel that currently we're not using it for anything anyway. Jim, go ahead.
Is there any liability risks to the city since it's not a big permit or?
Well, we have some immunities. It's not really recreational immunity, and I talked with Mary or emailed back and forth. We have the Class 3 events, like over on the parks. We don't require insurance from them. I thought, well, at least for these, we could require them to sign a release and indemnification for us. And that is something to consider, whether we want to require insurance. Mary had said when the Class 3 events were discussed and approved, whenever that was, probably before my time, people didn't want to put a burden on people being able to use the parks for that kind of a smaller event. So theoretically, they could. Insurance is the thing that guarantees there's a pot of money there to help pay for things, indemnifications and releases.
Well, and some of the discussion we had for smaller uses, and that we had this discussion in the context with youth vending permits. Remember when we planned to require proof of, essentially insurance for youth vendor permits? And it really was a sticky wicket because it was cost prohibitive for people who could get it, and it was almost overkill for the exposure that they presented. And so the discussion we had was that what insurance is really is it's the way that you're going to respond to the risk you take. And so whether you choose to use insurance or whether you choose to personally indemnify the person who's allowed you to be there, all insurance does is transfer the risk from the pocketbook of the individual to the pocketbook of an insurance company. But the risk isn't taken away. Just because someone fails to provide insurance doesn't mean that they are not still liable. And it doesn't mean that with a personal indemnification in the application that says, I hereby agree to XYZ, that they're not still legally obligated to make good on any damages that would be incurred. So and that's where we left off with the youth permits, is we let them sign with their application a statement that says they attest to understanding that risk and assuming it. And so we accepted that in lieu of insurance for small things, small occupancies and small risks. But we would never allow such a thing like on a Class 1 event where they're having, 3,000 people or something like that. I mean, we just wouldn't. But on these small, short-term things, we've kind of let it go.
Well, and this is nothing that the city has to decide that it wants to do. We got the request, so we brought it forward. These are, for example, you can't really distinguish, well, we're going to let Bridge Clinic do it, but we won't let anyone else do it. That's sort of a unfair, discriminatory sort of thing to do. And these are different kinds of properties. They're not our parks where, we have people going out there and maintaining them and cutting the grass and making sure that they're in a certain good condition. And while we were waiting for this with Bridge Clinic, they had wanted to go ahead and I felt it was something we needed to do this way with council approval. Ultimately, they were just kind of told, well, you don't need anything to just go and take your 15 people down the block to the 400 block to do this. So yeah, it is a little different because it's not a park.
So parks are covered differently
Well,
because they're a park.
parks are certain things people do in parks that are covered by recreational immunity. And we do have immunities for certain things if we're not aware of them, like potholes, things like that. This is, an interesting thing because it is city property. It's not open to the public, but now we're going and allowing people to use it. And it's not going to probably have the same kind of maintenance or inspections that go on with our city parks.
My recommendation would be that in with the attest statement or the hold harmless statement that applies to the application, there would be verbiage inserted to the effect that the applicant understands that they're utilizing the property in an as-is state and that they agree to assume all risk based on the condition of the property for their activity.
Well, and
That-
see, the interesting thing though with that, Lisa, like for example, the Bridge Clinic, they're the applicant, they're going to sign that kind of thing, but they're allowing other people who may or may not be signing those things. That would be very hard for us to police.
Well, and as the event sponsor, ultimately the liability, at least first and foremost from the participants, falls to them as the organizer, and then secondarily to us as the owner of the property. But I think if we were to secure, that type of understanding from whoever the applicant is, that they understand that the property that they're going to use is being used as is, and that we're certainly not certifying, any level of quality or safety associated therewith. Similar to when the downtown business owners had a pop-up event at the Savo Supply Building before anything was done to it. They all went in there on a Saturday night and they had dinner and drinks and whatever they had because someone gave them the key. Well, we had no clue as to what that building was all about. And, had there been an accident or somebody slip and fall, where does that liability fall? And we weren't real excited about that event, but it happened. And, they, just like when Wausau Soup occupied West Side Battery one night, same thing, pop-up event, we just all happened to own the building. We're certainly not certifying its quality.
Well, and as you know, Lisa, being in the insurance business, all of these things, they only help you to some extent if you're finally in court. It doesn't keep you from getting into court,
Right.
So we could end up defending lawsuits and coming in and talking with CIVMIC and debating whether we have to pay a claim and banding around hold harmlesses and releases. And, it still doesn't get you out of that position.
Right. I think anytime you allow the use, regardless of the verbiage, you could get sucked into such a thing,
Right.
and you'd be in the same position either way, even whether they have insurance or not. Whether you're in a fight with an individual over an attest statement or whether you're in the fight with their insurer, it's the same process, I guess. So we just have to decide if we're willing to allow that type of use on non-park properties, or if we don't want any of this stuff happening based on risk. Becky?
what's next? That's my next question. What's next? I think that's my fear, is that this seems very innocuous, 15 people doing yoga. But it's what's next.
Sure.
Who's next going to think, well, I want to have a party over here and I'm going to use this, but you let those people. That's what I'm worried about, is that slippery slope, and always my bottom line of trying to treat everybody the same. I don't understand why they want to use that land when they, like you said, they have 400 block and everything else very close. That's just my fear, is that I don't want to give somebody something and then somebody else come up and say, no, we just don't want to do that.
Well, and in the context of the permit, these, because they're smaller, we would allow them to be staff issued. I would think, though, in the review of the application, when it comes in, if they weren't comfortable with the scope of the event or what was going to be taking place there, they always have the ability to elevate the application and push it through to us to review and not make that choice. They're not required to make the decision. I mean, they always could say, you have a little bit of a riskier event, we'd like you to talk with public health and safety and not issue it at the staff level if it was something that was at a different level. I mean, assuming we wanted to allow this at all, that's where I want us to
Well, you still
decide.
have to follow those same standards
Right.
of,
Right.
and these don't have a lot of standards as to who we don't have anything like that in any of our special events. I think that's next on our agenda, just to have more reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. But yeah, even if they come to you, you're still bound to evaluate those things on an even keel.
Right.
And I do understand what Becky is saying exactly. When I was thinking about this and trying to figure out, do we limit it to 2 days? Or, I kept trying to think, well, what kind of things are people going to want to have there? And that's really hard to anticipate.
It is, because the first time you get asked, you think, okay, well, it's just yoga. But, what is it next? I mean, we don't know.
Next is nude yoga. I have no idea. Well, you don't know. You don't know. Not that,
When are they having these?
I think that's at the 400.
So, yeah, I mean, we don't know. So I guess you guys have to decide, or we have to decide what we're comfortable with. Do we want to allow this at all, or do we want to say no? Because there are other places people can go if we would like them to be.
I would move to approve this use this year and add the verbiage that we will not be taking any special steps to prepare the property for their use, and it will be as is.
Okay, but this one isn't a single event. It's a blanket change that allows all sorts of stuff to happen. So if we.
This year.
No, permanently. If we approve what she's submitted here, any of these properties, this can happen anytime, all the time. I mean, it's not just a one-event change. The one event is what brought this about, but this would be a permanent change that would allow for this type of little pop-up stuff to happen on vacant city property. All they have to do is come in and request a permit. That's where the
I think I would
variety.
be more comfortable if we were limiting, okay, here's a spot that we feel is appropriate. Yeah, you can do it there.
We're going to be looking at the more, as staff, longer-term things. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I know the Bridge Clinic is potentially looking forward to doing this, but on the one hand, how can you say yes to them and no to everybody else?
You kind of can't.
On the second thing, when we look at the longer-term uses, we'll be able to do more of making an inventory of properties and maybe making some recommendations, which ones wouldn't be approved. This was sort of a little hurry to try and get it in front of you guys, with everybody who thought about it to be able to do this, and we thought, it might not be that complicated, but it is. So it could be postponed and tell Bridge Clinic, we're sorry, this just isn't going to happen right now. We'll look at it together with the longer-term use and come up with a list of properties.
And that's the one thing we wanted to do, is have a separate policy for long-term use and short-term use, because they're different risk. involved with a longer-term sustained use of a property.
Yeah, certainly you'd want
Like the
insurance.
garden-type occupancy that's there year-round and things like that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's longer use. But do you guys want to wait on this one? And would the other one be ready next month? So we could consider them both in
I
September, do you
don't
think?
know if the other one's going to be ready. We have a meeting set tomorrow, Tammy's kind of working from home, and so we have
Sure.
one meeting that we're going to start looking at it. We were going to not rush the longer-term one, because we're also getting up to winter. Ann Worth had told me that an RFP was going out for the property across from Trolley Flats. I don't know if it has or not for potential development, so that was taking that off the table, so we're like, what's the rush?
Right. So do you guys want to decide on this now, or do you want to wait? I mean, you could defer action. You could table it until the other one is ready if you want, and then just nothing happens on those parcels until we get through. Go ahead, Pat.
I would narrow the motion to approve it for this property during the year 2020, as long as they want to go out there and do their yoga in the cooler weather.
Well, are we talking about for anybody then, too, for the rest of the year? Because it's not just saying for Bridge. It can't just be for Bridge Clinic.
There's not one applicant on this one. This is a wholesale policy change.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't been flooded. I mean, I can't see this becoming a problem. So I think we should permit yoga or similar activities at that property for this year with the intention that we prepare a plan to consider similar uses at other city-owned
What do
properties.
you mean by similar activities or similar uses?
Non-motorized, small groups. We can handle this.
Okay, so you'd be fine, for example, with nude yoga or a party there if somebody wanted to
Well,
have a party
That's the thing. It
there?
could be a block party. I mean, you
Right.
just don't know. A group
Right.
of houses could decide they want to
Right.
do something
I
like
mean, I'm
that there
just trying
too.
to help you see, if you approve it for the one, and I think, just so you understand, we're approving it for everybody till the end of the year.
I don't think we're approving alcohol service.
No,
Not concessions, but
Or-
that concessions
People could
is
bring their own.
different than use, right, than bring your own. This allows bring your own, it only prohibits concessions.
this is pretty broad. And so, you could approve it with a reevaluation date. I mean, if you want to try it and say you want to approve it with a, reevaluation date of January 1st, let it play for a few months and see how this goes. You could then always evaluate it and repeal it or continue it.
Well, we could have it sunset, automatically, but then you could renew it, if you
Sure.
wanted to.
Yeah, I can't see it. I mean, it doesn't have a pleasant view. It doesn't have restrooms, doesn't have any facilities. I just don't see that there's going to be much demand for the site, or, I can't see it being a problem.
Okay. It could be a variety of sites as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Site, correct? I
No,
mean,
it's
this is
all of them.
city-owned property, period.
in general.
Yeah. I'm not going to vote for allowing this until it is more completed. I don't feel comfortable. I just think it's opening floodgates, and we don't know what's going to happen. And it's just too broad.
Okay. Go ahead, Dawn.
I also have to say that I cannot support this. I'm along with Becky's.
Do you want to wait a little bit then and consider it with the long-term item?
Yes, that's what I would like to do.
Because you can just hold action on this and just leave it sit and direct staff to bring it back when the other one is ready and consider them together? Is that kind of,
Yes, that's for me. I'm not like saying no ever, but right now, I'm not comfortable.
okay. What does everyone else think? You want to wait a little bit?
I would say that if it gets a motion and no second, it fails, and then we can do something new that's more appropriate.
Sure.
That staff may
Right.
want.
And if you want to
better
hold, if you want to
verbiage in
hold
this.
off on it, you don't really have to vote. You can agree by consensus to hold off and direct Tara to bring it back when the other one is ready. Okay? With that, do you want me to still obtain a second for your motion, Pat, or do we want to wait?
I don't see a second, so I guess that's, we're not going down that road
We
at
don't,
the
we don't
moment,
have,
but-
right, we don't have one. So I guess if we're in agreement that we want to wait, we'll hold off on this. We won't act at all, and then we'll ask Tara to bring it back when the longer-term one is ready, and we'll consider them together.
Okay, and it would, I don't know, is there a problem with allowing a kind of a low-impact use like that on one property, and if somebody finds another parcel someplace and wants to do something, that would be a separate issue?
Could they apply for a Class 3 event, maybe?
There's no problem with saying, well, we're going to let activities occur on one parcel and not other parcels. And there's nothing wrong with making a reasonable classification, like you said, non-motorized things. I think that's a very rational and reasonably supported distinction amongst applicants. This applicant wants to have a chainsaw carving exposition,
Yeah.
but it's a residential neighborhood. You're going to say potentially no, because that's rationally related to, the public health and safety. But to, distinguish somehow amongst undistinguishable events, that would be a problem.
Sure.
Do you follow that?
Yeah, and I think you have a sense of what we would kind of like to see, so if you could maybe bring us back something
Well, I'll
next
bring
month.
something, we were going to study it a little more in depth
Sure.
for the long-term uses, like that trolley flat parcel that's across the street. That's a big parcel. It lends itself to a lot of potentially different uses. So
Very good.
that's why we want to take a little more time, and it's a long-term thing, and you're going to be requiring insurance, and you might want to have to, and then you're cutting other people out from using it if you have a long-term use,
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Very good.
Well,
See you
let's do
next
that.
month.
We'll hold it, and yes, if it's
Well-
ready in September or October, whenever it's ready, we'll take it. We don't have to take it next month, but
We'll
if
get
it comes
it
together sooner than we thought, we'll take it whenever she's ready.
January for freezing activities.
Okay. And, yep, and so now that brings us to item number 7, which is the operations report from the fire department for July of 2020, copies of which are in the report. Does anyone have questions for the fire chief about any items on the report? Chief, do you have any items you want to discuss? She does not. If not, we'll place her report on file. Okay. And item number 8 is tavern activities, compliance checks, and law enforcement activities, and you have their report in the packets as well. Chief Bliven has called in on WebEx. Does anyone have questions for him on anything that you see on the report, or looks like a pretty standard month for us? If not, we'll place that report on file as well. Neither one of them needs action. Item number 9 is communications. Does anyone have communications? I have none either. And so now let's circle back to the monster truck event. Do we have the gentleman on the phone yet?
He did try to call in, and then the call got dropped. I
Okay.
don't know if we want to try to call him back. I do have his phone number available.
Why don't we try and see, because if we can get some answers from him, maybe we can make a decision about that event, because it's coming up, it seems like they applied late, so that event is coming up so fast that we don't have another meeting in between. It's the end of this month. Oh, we got his voicemail.
Do you wish
Okay.
to be on one? Should I just hang up, or are you?
Yeah, it's no sense, it will be adjourned by the time he calls back. So, okay, so we've made a diligent effort to try and reach Mr. Torgerson about this event, and there are an awful lot of questions surrounding the controls, the crowd size, everything associated with it. There's not much complete information on the application. It says will be taken care of in an awful lot of relevant areas. What are your thoughts, committee? Not approve this one? Okay. If that's the case, then we'll need we do everything in the positive, so we'll need a motion and a second to approve it, and then if the desire is to not approve it, everyone would vote no. Do we
I
have a?
would make a motion in order to bring it to a vote.
Sure. Oh, so we have a motion by Peckham. Is there a second? Second by Herbst. Then members in favor of permitting the event signify by saying aye. Members in favor of denying the application for the event signify by saying no.
No.
No. Let the record show that that application then has been denied unanimously. We don't have anything else to act on our agenda tonight then. We'll check back. Okay, come on up.
Hi,
Hi.
I was under the impression that I needed to be here for approval of our liquor license.
Okay,
Where are you from?
The Plaza Hotel.
No, I'm not.
that one wasn't in the batch.
I think,
Was it a
I
new
think the
license?
owner is confused. He had to renew the Plaza's license. We're going to be the Best Western Plus.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I think he was just confused.
yeah, no
I was as
application
well.
has
I
been
know
submitted. so-
Right.
That
Once-
we haven't applied yet for the Best
Yep.
Western
Right.
Plus.
Right, but once
license.
the new one applies, you'll definitely end up here, but not quite yet.
Yeah, I don't have
So-
anything from the plaza.
Okay.
But he'll
well,
need to apply
It was
with-
a lovely meeting anyway.
He can apply with the clerk, though, and then once that's ready, we'll consider that at one of these meetings like this, so.
Okay, thank you so
All right.
much. And we won't be doing yoga.
Oh, geez.
You can come back anytime.
Okay, let's just circle back and see. We don't have Fran Howe with us yet, and she has not called in either?
Correct.
Okay, so we have no action then to take on Fran House, so we'll leave that for next month and bring it back also. Everything else we have taken care of, so a motion to adjourn would be appropriate. Motion by Herbst, second by Peckham. Members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? No one ever is. We'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.